Hello and welcome back to another episode. So, this one's a bit of an impromptu one, as I'm sure you've seen from the title. We have an Atari ST 520. Well, 520 ST. I've been looking for one of these boys for about a decade now. And there was one in my local game shop, which is very exciting, and I'm sure we're all thrilled with, especially considering how fucking expensive this was. I paid my wife back, so it's fine. She paid for it for me, because she's an absolute treasure. So, gorgeous wife helped me purchase an Atari ST, just because a bit strapped for cash, so sod it. Part birthday present, part payback later. Yeah, for those of you who haven't seen or don't know what an Atari ST is, way back in the early 80s, late 80s, early 90s, Jack Tramiel, the former founder and former owner of Commodore, who published the Commodore 64, the Amiga range of computers, the Amiga CD32, if you want to be pedantic, the Amiga CD-TV, oh no, Commodore CD-TV, my apologies, which you may know from Angry Video Game Nerds' video on the Town with No Name, which, if you haven't played that, don't. Anyway, Mr. Tramiel, or Tramiel, or whatever you want to pronounce it as, kicked out of his company, mostly for being a colossal wang nugget, from what I'm given to understand. Could be wrong. Could just be he was booted out for being incompetent. When, you know, I'm not done with the home computer business. I'm going to go purchase Atari in its entirety. Which he did. Which, considering this was like mid-80s, Atari hadn't been much on the up. So they decided we're going to wade into the home computer market, which was being dominated largely by Amiga at the time. And we're going to make a pretty solid line of computers with the Atari 800 series. Oh no, 400, then 800, then Atari ST, and then I think it finished with the Atari Falcon, which was just basically an ST. But ST's been on my mind for two solid reasons. Number one, it's an Atari thing I don't own. Now, there are a lot of Atari things I don't own. I used to own a Jaguar, which I sold because it sucked. And I never played the bloody thing. By contrast, this has a lot going for it. An awful lot going for it. With the principal reason being the major reason I wanted an Atari ST, which is Rampart. Now, if you've seen my Mega Drive video, you know how much I like Rampart. Speak about. And this is unfortunately as close to as an arcade quality I'm ever going to get outside of buying a Rampart arcade machine, which, good luck finding one of those. But we tracked down an Atari ST. We've tracked down its Atari ST with its rather wonderful, clunky, yet delightful exterior. Even picked up a number of games with this thing. A lot of it is just copied software, such as Postman Pat, which was plugged in here for some strange reason. No idea why. I've collected a couple Atari games of the ST on and off over the years, just kind of on a whim a lot of the time. A lot of the time just hugely on a whim, because at the end of the day, they're quite expensive. They are extraordinarily expensive. And I have collected a couple of Amiga games, such as Dalek Attack, over the years as well, with the intention of inevitably getting an an Amiga. Unfortunately, I don't think this is backwards compatible, this boy, but it was signed by the writer of 2005's Doctor Who episode Dalek with Christopher Eccleston and Billy Piper, which is sick. And I even reached out to the writer on Twitter, and he was like, yeah, that's my signature, so great, fantastic. But that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the Amiga. That's just a nice little side tangent where I will never get to talk about that again. But yeah, it wasn't just the Atari ST. It was a boy I've been looking for quite some time. A big, old, clunky-ass LCD monitor by Philips. With even the ability to move the bloody image on the screen like this for absolutely no reason. And you know what? He's a beautiful boy. He's a beautiful boy. Came in a ratty ass box that has gone in the bin, and I'm sure there's lots of people who would be horrified by such a concept, but I'm not keeping a rotting box in my games room. If it's rotting, it's out of here. Because it's gross. It's currently sat in the kitchen with a whole bunch of recycling in it, and it will go down eventually. But, we got Christmas coming. So, what did it come with? A absolute bucket load of floppy disks. I'm not going to go through all of these. Most of these are just copies. So you've got stuff like Solomon's Key with Pepsi Challenge. I don't know what that is. Hellfire, Metro Cross, and apparently it will cause... Well, one of the games may crash out, which is helpful. Ghost Bubble. Sod knows what Ghost Bubble is. Eliminator, Nebulous. Something called Chubby Gristle. What's Chubby Gristle? No idea what Chubby Gristle is. I don't want to know what Chubby Gristle is. It doesn't sound pleasant. Winnie the Pooh. Can't read that. Oh no. Copy of First Word. So I'm assuming that's something like Microsoft Word. I could be horribly wrong. I know this, obviously this is a computer. It's not a games console first and foremost. It's not even dedicated to games predominantly. The Atari ST is more known for its musical capabilities and the fact that I think... Oh goodness, who was it? I want to say Motley Crue are still using one, or at least the head of a band my wife really likes. It's one of the two. But yeah, they're still using this thing to generate music because it's extremely, extremely good at it. Which is nice. See? Composer. It's very bad in this. There we go. Composer. So clearly somebody knew what they were doing with this machine. Bomb Jack. Xenon. Xenon. That's pretty cool. F-16 Flight Sim. Now, didn't know this was in here. Funnily enough, I have Falcon. The F-16 Fighter Simulator, which... Considering it's a 16-bit game, looks pretty impressive on the graphical front. I found this in a charity shop like 2 years ago, for like a $5. I found that in a game called Red Storm Rising by Micropose, who I think are back, but could also be gone. Could be wrong. But yeah, although to be fair, this is a simulator, and it looks like absolute ass, unlike Falcon, which doesn't look like absolute ass. I have a couple of other Atari ST games, but we'll get around to that one. So yeah, that's interesting. I don't know what leaderboard is. I don't know if that's like keep track of people's scores or whatever. Trivia Trove. I'm not going to go through all of these. Some of these, I'm looking at these for the first time. To be fair, I'm looking at these for the first time because I've never quite owned so many floppy disks in my life, and there's a nice novelty to that. Ooh, a demo of Golden Axe and Puzzle Nick by Ocean. So that's pretty sick. And a personal finance manager. That's not as sick. In fact, that's extremely boring. But whatever. Interface. ImageWorks interface the full game. Don't know too much about that. I think that would be one of the first things I pop in this boy. Atari Basic, if you want to do some programming. Turbo Cup. A copy of something called Atari Explorer, as well as Atari Explorer, which is apparently a tutorial, and this is a very old piece of software from 1988. It was 5 when I was born. Horrifying. Web processor again. Chessmaster 2000. That's not exciting, is it? That's not particularly exciting. Fun School. Music Maker. Something. Now that's interesting. Outrun. Outrun for the Atari ST, published by Sega. That's extremely cool. That's very cool. I'm a big fan of that. Some more copied games. Shuffle Pack, Autoroute, Art Studio, Donald Duck Playground. Odd one. Guess this was for somebody really who had kids, probably. That's actually a nice thing about getting like bundle stuff. You kind of get to just sift through some of the crap that they had and see, like, somebody wrote this. Somebody copied, say, music construction set in very, very comfortable handwriting, but they also like copied, say, Honda and Tom and Jerry onto the same floppy disk. Isn't that baffling? They probably copied this like 35 years ago. That's crazy to me. First Word Plus again, typing tutor, another copy of Art Studio, and something. Just a lot of interesting junk came with this thing. In addition to a big sodding monitor and a big sodding sexy ass Atari ST. But as I said, I've collected a couple games. Obviously, Falcon and Red Storm Rising were up there. But now I have the opportunity to collect a hell of a lot more. And I'll kind of get to ones I'm slightly interested in. Corporation, which, if you don't know, is a first-person shooter. Probably one of the single oldest I own. And this game was a $5 back in the day. Like, way back in the day, which, considering that's quite cheap. And this is Core Designs. This is the guys who created Tomb Raider. So I'm interested to see if that's any good or if it's absolutely atrocious. Complete 360 rotation with the ability to run, jump in a first-person shooter of that era. That's interesting. But kind of the two major games I own an Atari ST for at the moment are Stormmaster. You will not see people talking about Stormmaster. I could not find anything online about this game, but it's by the Silmarils. Now that sounds familiar. They I think made a bunch of Lord of the Rings stuff, but the Silmarils is actually from the Silmarillion. Those are the jewels that I think the First War of Light is fought over, and if I am horribly wrong on that, you'll have to excuse me. It has been a hot minute since I read the Silmarillion. But Stormmaster's interesting. It's kind of a strategy game in the vein of, say, Dune on the Sega CD, in that it's a whole hodgepodge of different genres, like civ management and vehicle design and turn-based combat and a whole bunch of really particularly weird shit that really got my attention, and it's certainly a game worth playing. Unfortunately, this isn't the large box version, not like this last game I'm going to show off in a minute. But I don't know. I love this kind of 90s ass font, because it's not particularly, it's of a specific era of the 90s. I used to have this Greek mythology book from when I was a lot younger that had a similar kind of art style to this. This kind of dying 80s sci-fi combined with that kind of dark, twisted sci-fi, 80s horror stuff, or 80s like children's movies, like really dark fantasy things. Really got my attention, really captured my imagination. But that's not the major artwork I'm fascinated with the Atari. That would be the artwork of Roger Dean. Now, if you don't know who Roger Dean is, he did the artwork for the band Yes on a good number of their albums. He's flat out my favourite artist of all time. He was working with HR Giga and I think Mobius on, was it Tchaikovsky's Dune, which was going to be like a 24-hour-long adaptation of the Dune, I think the first Dune book by Frank Herbert. And some of that artwork kind of bled over into the game design of certain games like Pteropods. Now, whilst Pteropods isn't a Dune-specific bit of artwork, it is a tripod. It's a tripod from an abandoned War of the Worlds project. You can kind of see they've got like 3 legs and they're called pteropods. That is absolutely stunning. And from what I'm given to understand, Pteropods is a brutally difficult game about fighting off these giant mechanical monsters as you're trying to mine this entire Sub-Zero ass planet. I miss games like that. I miss games being completely insane in premise, like the idea of managing a island nation who fight wars using giant-ass airships. You're a mining operator fighting off automated pteropods. Like, that's just so fucking weird, and I love it. If you don't know, Pteropods, published by Psygnosis. I have tried to track down some more of their games over the years, and I have. Unfortunately, I think the 2 I'm looking at are Amiga games, so I won't bother you with that right now. But we have an Atari ST. We have an Atari ST, and we can play Pteropods and probably die horribly, and we can play Stormmaster and do the same thing. And then I can sit there and go, ooh, Outrun! I'm very excited. And I'm hoping that in a few months, I'll have cobbled together a bit more of an Atari ST collection to kind of show off. I'm very excited about this. I think it's going to be sick. I do need to kind of clear out the PC shelf, get rid of a whole bunch of just old PC games I don't give a shit about, and fill it up with Atari ST shit, which I do care about. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Anyway, that's it for this week, guys. Just to look at a random Atari ST we found in town, my excitement about that, and yeah, hope you're doing well. Hope Christmas is not bankrupting you quite as much as it's bankrupting me. And yeah. Anyway, guys, that's me for another week, and that is me signing off.